The gradebook in Canvas may or may not be turned on when you first get here. Go to the Settings button at the bottom left and click on the Navigation tab. If you're not already there, click on the Navigation tab and lift up both assignments and grades to the section at the top so that they're visible. Whether you have other things visible or not is up to you, but these must be visible for you to work with them. And then click the Save button. Now you can maneuver over to the gradebook directly. The assignment button wasn't lit up because there's nothing in it. And as you will see, the gradebook has the students in it already, but there's no extra columns in there yet. And there's no button here to create new columns. The way we create columns is actually out of the assignments tool. So let me go back to the home page, clicking on this thing at the top, and click on the assignments button. And let's just well, here we can add an assignment to this box called assignments. And let's go ahead and do that now, and we'll call this assignment essay number 1. And we'll say that it's going to be worth 100 points. And then click, well, instead of clicking update, let me go into more options first. And I want essay number 1 under advanced options to actually be them submitting an online submission. Maybe I enable Turnitin if I want to, but I do have to allow file uploads. Now you'll see when you're doing this that you have options for due dates, when it's available from and until, and so if you set the until date the same as the due date, late submissions will not be allowed. Otherwise, late submissions would be allowed. And you can do group assignment if you wanted to do it this way. You'd have to set group somewhere else, but these are the types of things you could set up with your assignment. So I create an assignment for them to upload a paper. And I have an option here to add a rubric. Now I can either create a rubric from scratch, or I can find a rubric from one of my other courses. Creating a rubric just means typing in things where it says full marks here. You could type that to say different things, change the number of points, add different levels in between, and so on, and create the rubric one time and then use it across different classes if you want. I'm going to say no rubric at this point. And now an assignment is created. So if we go look back at my list of assignments by clicking on the assignments button, I see an essay. Now I can create another assignment, and let's call this one homework number 1. And I'll say this one's only worth 5 points and click update, just so that we have 2 different things in the assignments bucket. Now let's click over to the grades button. And when we see when we're in the gradebook that now there's a column for essay 1 and a column for homework 1. And so I could just click into here and type a score for the student and click enter, or I could, push the down arrow and go to the next one that way. Now you'll see that as I put in these numbers, it populates a percentage out of the assignments button and then a percentage for the total semester. At the moment, those are the same things, and they will be until I change different kinds of assignments. And so this automatically populates. Kind of the first thing to say that someone who's getting, let's just make these kind of more filled out, so you'll see that it's adding up the semester grades as we go, as they get populated. Now if there's nothing in there, if it stays blank, then it pretends that that grade doesn't exist. So it's only dividing by the things that are created. So you could create all of your columns at the beginning of the semester, and it would still be an accurate reflection of what it is that they have as a score for the moment. Now, instead of typing them in here on the screen, let's say that the essay was something that they submitted. Well, each column has a little pull-down button next to it, a little pull-down menu. And so you see this pull-down menu has Speed Grader as one of the options. And if the student had uploaded an essay, it would be taking up this main section of the screen right here. Instead of typing the grade here, I could type in commentary to the student. I could even click to record a media comment for the student, which could be video, audio, or just me typing things. So that's a media comment. I can even put in a file attachment, and all of that would go to this discussion section here. So a student would be able to see what I've written as well as the grade. In fact, they can click reply, and you can almost have a little miniature discussion board here on the student's assignment page. So this screen that we're in right now is called the Speed Grader, because whatever the student submits, whether it's a discussion board entry or an uploaded file, is right here for you to look at, and on the same screen is right here for you to type in a score. And we'll see an example of that in a minute. Let's go back to the gradebook itself. Just wanted to show you what the Speed Grader can do. Now, other things that you can do is, let me close that one out and show you some of the other options for each column. So you can look at the details. That's a speed grader we looked at already. Message students who. Well, I could say message students who scored less than 3 out of 5, or let's say 4 out of 5. And then I would type a message, dear students, and it would decide who those students are. And then when I click to send the message, it would send an email just to them. So this is a powerful way to influence student success with your students. Or maybe it's they haven't been graded yet. And now that one is just something that I'm grading manually. If it's message students who, something that they haven't submitted yet or haven't been graded yet, you can see it identifies who they are. So if you're the type of instructor who wants to send a message the night before it's due, this would be an easy way to do it without looking at who's actually done it. The system will decide for you. Set default grade. Well, you can give everyone the same grade. Everyone's going to get 5 out of 5 on this. I'm going to overwrite the grades that are already there, and boom, now everyone has got 5 out of 5, except for the test student who doesn't count with that. 5 out of 5 on that particular assignment. You could curve the grades. Muting the assignment means that the students won't see the progress as you're working down the column. So normally a student logs in after you've done her grade, she can see it right away. If you mute the assignment, then no one sees anything until you're ready to unmute the assignment. Okay, so let's go back to the main page and go to assignments and talk a little bit more about types of assignments we can do. We've got 2 assignments here called an essay and a homework. Let's say I want to add another assignment and I want this one to be called participation. I'll just initially make it called participation and worth 100 points. Okay, well now I've got something worth 5, something worth 100, and something worth 100. If you've got the kind of syllabus that actually calls for different weightings around the course, what you want are not just plain assignments. I mean, you need the assignments because that's how you get a column in the gradebook, but you also want assignment groups. So let's create a group called participation. And what we're going to do is just name it that, and then drag the column participation into the participation group. And we're going to create a group called essays. And click update and drag my essay into the essay grade. So now I've got, and let's do one more under group types. Let's select essays now and create an essay number 2. That's perfect. So it's also worth 100 points and click update. So now we've got 2 things happening here, 1 thing happening here, and as many things as we want happening under homework or assignments. These buckets are going to be useful because when we go back to the gradebook, this is how we can set different weightings. And so before we even talk about the weightings, you'll see now that we have these columns that I can't really influence, these are showing the total percentages within that weighting. So of all the essays, this person's got a 94 at the moment. If she gets a 94 and 100, now it's going to change the essay weighting to be 97%. Okay, but if her participation is a 12 out of 100, now her total drops to 96%. So this total column finally makes a little bit more sense now because it's adding up different weightings. Let's pause here for just a second. If you've got the kind of class where the numbers already add up to 100 or 1,000, or you've got it figured out in the syllabus where the numbers match the A minus B pluses and so forth, you don't need to worry about the weightings. You can just have the numbers be the numbers. Those of you who want the numbers to be more like everything is worth 100, but they are weighted, you do have to set up those gradebook weights, the assignment groups they're called, and then you come back to the gradebook, and up here in the top left, you set group weights. And then you can tell it, I want to weight the final grade based on the groups, and I want the essays to be worth 50% of the class, the participation to be worth 20% of the class, and then the homework to be worth 30% of the class. And when I click Save, watch what happens to this middle line. It was 69%. Now, since I'm changing the weightings, it's going to jump up to 80%. So the weightings do make a difference for how the things are counted totally within the columns. There's not a way for you to have a column, look at another column, and then divide by and do that sort of thing. The only thing you can do is go back to the assignments page, create different assignments that do different things there, and then you can even set certain rules in place. So let's go back to assignments, and you'll see with this bucket of essays here, one of the things I could do is I could click Edit and then add a grading rule. So I could say to drop the lowest 1, or the lowest 2, if that's what I want to do, maybe the lowest 2 grades. Or the other things I could do is never drop anything. So these are the different kinds of things you can do with the assignment groupings. Going back to the grades button. One of the things left to talk about is other things to see here under this general gear icon. You can see the grading history, so it remembers what you've changed. You can download the whole roster as a CSV file, an Excel file, and you can upload. So one of the ways you could do this is download here initially, work out of Excel and add new grades, new columns, and then re-upload using this button here. You've seen about the group weights. Hiding student names would be a way for you to grade without knowing what you're seeing it from. You can rearrange columns by the due date. You could treat ungraded as zeros. And this one's kind of important because watch what happens to this 100 and this 60 if we treat ungraded as zeros. It assumes that everything in the semester is now a 0 that hasn't been graded, and this is the semester as if it ended today. Now, this could be useful if you wanted to see what happens to students who miss assignments. And probably the better solution is if they miss something is to put the 0 in there when you're giving everyone else a grade, and therefore leave everything else ungraded. You do want to watch out for this treat ungraded as zeros when it comes time for midterm evaluations. And it's also very important at the end of the semester when you're doing E-grades. If you have any of these blanks here, you'll notice that the blanks are treated as not part of the formula. So let's say it is the end of the semester. You're going to want to turn that on to make sure you haven't left any blanks by accident, and then have E-grades pull the total column. So you get a chance to have E-grades say which column it is. We'll have the total column is what it looks at, and then you tell it where the A minus B plus cutoff is and that sort of thing by percentages. I'm going to turn that off at the moment. So you can always click to sort by top to lowest, or you can click on the student names as the default way to have the students come in by first name, last name. So if I do click to have this sorted here, I can click over here again on the student names to have it resorted alphabetically. There's an option here to go back to the old gradebook. It's going to go away eventually, so it's probably better just to get to learn the newest gradebook. Again, probably the simplest way to do it is just to click in there and type scores. But if you're not doing that, then the speed grader is probably the optimal way to move from student to student. So again, if the student had a submission, you would look at the submission, discussion board or otherwise, type a score for them, and then just click next, and it would go to the next student in the list, still looking at the same submission, the same assignment. So if you wanted to switch assignments, you need to go back out to the gradebook from there, and then select the speed grader from that different assignment. And then the last thing to say about the speed grader is probably to not underestimate the power of leaving a media comment. If you can let students hear the tone of voice, you can say more in the 5 minutes or 2 minutes even that you're giving them feedback than you would normally have typed. It can be a fabulous way of getting students more feedback and better feedback to help them improve for the future.